literally today, gold was up 40 or $60 on Friday. It's up $40 today. Silver was up $1.27 on Friday. Last time I looked, it was up about 50 cents. Those numbers will give you a nosebleed because they are predicting financial chaos in the world. And where that stops, nobody knows. I have said, and I believe this firmly, you do not want to live in a world of $5,000 gold. All fiat currencies eventually collapse.
Bob Moriarty's warning that a financial collapse is weeks, not years, away strikes at the heart of growing fears about the fragility of the global system. Decades of debt accumulation, reckless monetary policy, and political mismanagement have stretched the financial architecture to its breaking point. What once seemed like a distant risk has now become an immediate threat, with cracks appearing across banking systems, currencies, and sovereign debt markets. And gold historically becomes the first refuge when confidence unravels. The phrase worldwide revolution is not just a metaphor, but a reflection of the social and political upheavals already visible across continents. Rising costs of living, eroding trust in governments, and widening inequality have fueled protests, labor strikes, and political instability. As the traditional anchors of the global order weaken, people instinctively turn to tangible assets like gold and silver to preserve what the system can no longer guarantee: stability and purchasing power. Every major upheaval in history, from wars to currency resets, has been marked by a surge in gold demand, and today's unfolding crises are no exception. Central banks themselves appear to recognize this vulnerability. They have been net buyers of gold at record levels, quietly building reserves while their public statements focus on controlling inflation and maintaining stability. Gold, by contrast, cannot be printed or manipulated in the same way, making it the ultimate hedge against the very policies designed to keep the current system afloat. Now, we present the clips from their interview. Before we continue to discuss this, please subscribe to our channel and activate the bell icon for timely updates. Thank you, and enjoy the video.
I was buying gold in 1968 at $35 an ounce. You couldn't buy gold per se, but you could buy gold coins. The $20 gold piece had 98% of an ounce, so you could pay $36 or $37 for a $20 gold piece. And I just thought that's a good idea. It seemed to me that that was a good idea there. Literally today, gold was up 40 or $60 on Friday. It's up $40 today. Silver was up $1.27 on Friday. Last time I looked, it was up about 50 cents. Those numbers will give you a nosebleed because they are predicting financial chaos in the world. And where that stops, nobody knows. I have said, and I believe this firmly, you do not want to live in a world of $5,000 gold. All fiat currencies eventually collapse. And I think the rise in gold and the rise in platinum and the rise in silver is actually a decline in the dollar and all fiat currencies. I think we're in a rush to the bottom. It's going to be an enormous opportunity for those who have been listening to me and the other fools who have been saying for years that gold is an insurance policy against financial chaos. From a strictly economics point of view, the gold juniors have been so hated for so long. And the leverage you get in those, I think there's going to be a lot of companies that go up 10, 20, 50-fold, maybe 100-fold. I own one company that I bought at 8.6 cents in January, and it was 85 cents on Friday. There are going to be enormous fortunes made. However, for the 97% of people who have never owned gold and silver, their life savings are being wiped out. Buying gold, silver, platinum, palladium, rhodium is like dancing. Sometimes you lead, sometimes you follow. Gold has been the leader. Silver is always the laggard. But when silver moves, it really moves. And if you think gold will give you a nosebleed right now, silver going up 10 or 20 bucks a day is really going to give you a nosebleed. I advocate when you invest, look around and buy what's cheap and sell what's dear. The Chinese government has actually come out and told their people, hey, look, gold's getting expensive, but platinum and silver are very cheap. And absolutely so. I was buying silver in 2001. I could buy 100-ounce silver bars for about $4.25 an ounce. And those same ounces are 43 and change today, and obviously going much higher. This is what Professor Zhang talked about, the acceleration phase of the collapse. It's going to get real obvious to people really soon that the financial system is coming unglued. And when I say really soon, he was talking about 5 years. I'm talking about 5 weeks. Something is happening right now, and something very scary is happening right now. And gold and silver are the barometer, they're the temperature. And you can look at the barometer and say, hey, wait a minute, we're in for a storm. One of the very best books to understand what's going on today is called The Fourth Turning, that was published in 1997. And the authors of The Fourth Turning said that somewhere around 2005, 2008, we're going to go into the fourth turning, and you have an attempt by government to have full-blown totalitarianism. Now, to the extent that I have seen things that are just staggering to me. You mentioned West Germany, okay? And they're literally arresting people and putting them in jail for their opinions. In the UK, they had 900 senior citizens arrested for holding signs being anti-genocide. In the United States, an IDF terrorist named Mast, M-A-S-T, who happens to be a congressman from Florida, has come out with the bill saying the Secretary of State can remove passports from people who support terrorism. And of course, supporting terrorism in the United States now is by saying you're against genocide. But it happened in Romania, where they canceled election because the wrong guy was elected. It's happening in Germany, where they're trying to put the ADF people in jail. It's absolutely bizarre. Now, I'm gonna take some credit here. And I don't know if you read every piece that I write, but I wrote a piece last week, and I included 3 pages of a book that I wrote in 2016. And I was talking about war and death. And I was predicting the world's first worldwide revolution. Uh, the censorship is just part of it. It scares me the extent to which the Kirk assassination is being used as a tool to tighten down on Americans' opinions. Now, we have a supposed constitutional guarantee to free speech. They don't have that guarantee in the UK. They don't have that guarantee in Germany or Romania. What we're doing is literally chopping that particular tree down, and that has very negative ramifications. Now, let me take you to the ultimate. You had mentioned that there are protests that are going on in Serbia that have been going on for months.
Yeah.
In Nepal, the government tried to block certain social media platforms. And the people literally revolted. They burned parliament down. They chased the prime minister out of the country. They burned his wife. They beat politicians. Same thing in Indonesia, same thing in the Philippines. And what we're seeing, it all goes back to the same place. When Nixon took us off the gold standard on August 15th of 1971, he literally said, okay, now the U.S. has a blank check. We can just print money as much as we want. And by and large, back then, that wasn't true in Europe. Europe was fairly physically responsible. But the countries in Europe and the countries around the world looked at it and said, well, if the United States can print money to oblivion, why can't we do the same thing? Revolutions always start because of economics, because there gets to be too great a difference between the oligarchs who have 99% of the wealth and the rest of the people. The revolution in France in 1789 took place because the cost of flour was so high that people couldn't afford it. But the interesting thing is, if you go back to France in the 18th century and say, why did the revolution take place? It's really simple. France got involved in a war that they didn't have to get into, and it literally bankrupted France. And of course, that's the American Revolution. Now, American history doesn't cover this, but the fact is, if the French had not supported the American Revolution, the colonialists would have lost.
For investors, the warning couldn't be louder. Stock markets may appear stable, but much of their resilience is built on a shaky foundation of cheap liquidity and ballooning debt. The so-called strength is less a reflection of true economic health and more a product of monetary engineering that can vanish the moment confidence wavers. When the next shock arrives, whether triggered by a banking crisis, geopolitical flashpoint, or sudden credit freeze, the illusion of stability will dissolve overnight. Gold, unlike paper assets, stands apart because its value is not dependent on promises of repayment or manipulated interest rates, but on millennia of trust and universal acceptance. In times of uncertainty, that trust becomes more than valuable. It becomes indispensable. Sharp movements in bond yields, cracks in sovereign debt markets, and growing stress in emerging economies all point toward a system stretched to its limits. These tremors reflect deeper fragility beneath the surface, suggesting that the global economy is entering a dangerous phase. In such an environment, gold's role is elevated beyond being a safe haven. It becomes a measure of systemic stress, a direct reflection of how quickly confidence is eroding. Each upward surge in its price is not simply speculative activity, but rather capital frantically seeking safety before the storm escalates. Let's get back to the interview.
That's a really good question, because somebody came to me 9 months ago. I'm in the south of France, and we have a hotel here that it's run as I don't know how to describe it. Two sisters own it, and they invite people to come for a few weeks or a few months to do work and help in the hotel. They're all young people, and it's interesting to me because I get to see a different point of view than I see typically. And came to me and said, look, I was at a conference in Spain and I met these couple from Afghanistan. Will you help support them economically for 3 months if they come to the hotel? And I said, sure, okay. So I did, and this Afghan couple came to the hotel and they were going to stay for 3 months. So the issue came up of what do they do next? Okay. And I went to them, I said, okay, what are you guys going to do next? Okay. And they said, well, we've applied for residency in Portugal. We were hoping it was easier to do in France. So we came to France temporarily to see if we could do that. And I said, we got to do something economically. Okay, you got to pay your way somehow. Why don't you write a book? And we talked about it. And I said, look, I'm going to help you with the computer, and I've got an editor. And if you will sit down and tell your story, the husband tells his story, the wife tells her story, and we see if we can make a book out of it. So the woman wrote about 10 pages the first day. It was some of the most beautiful writing I have ever read. And she tells a story about how during the American occupation, the Taliban came into her village and separated all the men, and that's everything above the age of 5, put them in a group, took them out into a field, and shot them right in front of her. She was 5. And the way she wrote it was so moving. I just said, holy cow, this is unbelievable. Now, in general, I'm against immigration in terms of infiltrating, invading a country for all of the reasons you just talked about. The Biden administration brought in something like 21 million illegal immigrants, and it got to the point of absolute absurdity where countries in Central and South America were shipping wholesale their criminals to the United States. And the criminals were coming to the U.S. border and handed a cell phone and $1,500 a month in a room in a nice hotel. But it goes back to the issue of what causes immigration in the first place. If you bomb the crap out of somebody, the people would do one of 3 things. They either die, they fight back, or they leave. And people don't realize this, but the amount of immigration in Europe is higher now than it was after World War II. Now, obviously, during World War II, so many countries were devastated. There was a lot of immigration just because people wanted to eat. Much of the immigration into Europe today is because people want to survive. Okay. We've got immigrants from Libya. We've got immigrants from Lebanon, Syria, Iran, Iraq. All of these meaningless wars in the Middle East that I'm totally dead set against have caused enormous number of people to leave. And initially, the Europeans looked at it and said, okay, no, we want to help these nice people, so we'll feed them and clothe them and give them money. But to the extent that many of the people did not want to be Europeans, they wanted to be where they were from, and they were very angry at having to leave their homes. So it's created a giant crime problem in Europe. And meanwhile, the UK is bankrupt, Germany is bankrupt, France is bankrupt. So the immigration portion is just part of it, but it gives a very identifiable target. Now, in the UK, there literally were grooming gangs that were running around finding 13, 14-year-old girls, grooming them and them. And the police were covering it up because they didn't want to appear to be racist. The real problem is not the immigration. The real problem is the stupid wars that serve no purpose whatsoever other than to make the military-industrial complex rich. And until we start addressing that particular issue, immigration is always going to be a problem. The 21 million in the United States is an interesting issue because we've always had 2 cultures. There is the culture that everyone sees, and then there is the subculture that people don't see but exists. The guy that I flew with in Vietnam, I was flying the F-4. It was 2-seat aircraft. I was in the front. The guy in the back was called a radar intercept operator. My radar intercept operator was named Clive Pyatt. He was a veterinarian in North Carolina. He had a lot of land, so he raised Christmas trees. So there was a subculture of Mexicans who would cross the border in April or May. They would groom and do all the things they had to do to the Christmas trees to get them ready. They would cut the Christmas trees in November and they would go back to Mexico in November until the next April or May. It existed. Every Christmas tree in the United States is raised by the same people. And now the Trump administration is going after the 21 million, but it's very hard to capture the 21 million. Okay. What is easy to do is to capture the people who are actually trying to work and earn a living. So they're going after the illegals in California and the illegals in North Carolina and the illegals that hang around the Home Depot because it's easy to find them. And the strange thing is, those are the people we want. Okay, I'm not anti-immigration.
The worldwide revolution Moriarty describes is more than a political or economic shift. It represents a fundamental reordering of money itself. As faith in fiat currencies continues to unravel, the world is being pushed back toward assets that cannot be devalued by decree. Gold, with its history as the ultimate anchor of trust, is poised to reassert itself at the core of this transition. Whether through individuals quietly stacking coins, institutions reallocating wealth, or entire nations building reserves, the migration toward tangible value is accelerating. In the ashes of a broken financial system, gold is not just insurance against collapse. It is likely to be the very foundation upon which a new financial order is rebuilt. Share your thoughts on their analysis in the comment section below. If you find this video informative, please support and turn on notifications to stay informed about our latest videos. See you in the following video. Thanks for watching.